Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Harvest Moon 64. I am Mega Freak 400, and last time we, continued just doing winter stuff is basically the majority of what we did. Though we also had that cutscene with Cliff that was weird. Anyway, I'm gonna keep doing, more winter stuff. Not really much else. Oh, the ore mine, cool. That'll be awesome. Show off the ore mine. Anyway, I might as well just dive into it because probably some people want my takes on it. So E3 happened last week. Here's my... I guess I'll go through all three conferences because I did watch all of them. And what I'm gonna say has probably been said before, but I'm just gonna offer quick opinions. I'm not gonna delve into too deep though because it's not really worth getting too deep into it. For Microsoft, for all of them, they all... I feel just too many sequels. I know that's something that's been said way too much. And for Nintendo, it's a little bit of bias because I like the nostalgia that you get from Nintendo. Also the fact that I feel that even though they have sequels, it's a little bit more, I guess more fresh. Some of the games, it's some of their stuff is, they're trying to be more unique even while making a sequel, where it seems like, I know I'm as biased as heck on this, but like a lot of the, shooter games, to me just all look boring and the same. That's a personal preference. If you like shooters, good for you. To me, they look boring. I don't enjoy playing them. I'm not good at playing them, and they look very similar. That's why I don't like realism, because realism is just boring to me. Again, personal preference, but I just, realism... It's impressive, but that's about it for me. It doesn't do anything for me. But anyway, so Microsoft had a few, games shown at the beginning. For the most part, they focused on Kinect. Now, here's my issue with Microsoft, and I know some people say they were the worst, and I honestly agree, they did the worst. Some people, actually think they did the best, which I don't know how you could think that. Partly not even because, well, they use Kinect, or because they focused on, Halo was their big go-to thing, which, I'm not a big fan of Halo. I know Bungie's not working on it, but to be fair, the company that is making it is made up of a lot of Bungie people who left Bungie, so it's not like it's entirely just another company handling it, but... I do feel like they should have just dropped it. Not done the remake of Halo 1 and that would be it. Not make a Halo 4 or a trilogy of new games, personally. But they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But with the Kinect thing, because my thing was going into the Microsoft conference. I know this is like an entire week after. I keep thinking I'm doing this an entire week after E3, but whatever. I'll just get past that. But going into the Microsoft conference, my thought was with Kinect, it's interesting technology. I've seen it in action. It works great for the dance games. The games are really fun to play with the Kinect, and it's good for like the sports games too. How are they going to apply this to actual, adventure games, shooter games, other games that aren't just party games or like, multiplayer games? How are they going to do this for like games like, again, shooters, adventures, action games, platformers? Not that, Microsoft has that many platformers, or is there any? I'm not even sure if there's any. Oh, hello, Potpourri. What are you doing there? But that was my initial thing. Now, with Nintendo with the motion control, and even Sony, though not as much because there really hasn't been a need for it right now because they haven't even really started. But or not really started, but they just kind of Nintendo, because the Wii Remote has been out longer. But with Nintendo, they had the motion control, but for games like Galaxy, you don't have you controlling. Basically, you have the control stick to move around. Basically, the movement is still able for games. You still have the motion to, like, okay, I guess Skyward Sword would be a good example of this. Skyward Sword, I don't know how it's going to be when it comes out, but basically you have the Wii Motion Plus for the sword swinging, but then you have the control stick for moving around. And the thing I was baffled with, not really baffled, but stumped with, was how Kinect was going to be able to move around without using any controller. And one of my friends was like, well, they could just have a pad where you could walk. And I'm like, but the point was to not have any peripherals at all except Kinect. You know, so they wouldn't have any pad. And holding, like, one person suggested having, like, the controller, I'm like, that's gonna, like, limit movement of your arms greatly. So, like, yeah, I was basically, my thing was, not so much I was shooting down every idea, but, like, I didn't know what they were gonna do for movement. I was actually curious as to what their solution would be to, you know, if they were gonna apply Kinect to, you know, action games, what were they gonna do with the inability to move effectively? I mean, yeah, you could walk in place, but... Ooh, rumbling. You might not know what that is, but actually that's an earthquake happening, and no one really addresses it for a while. Like, if you play this game for the first time, you might be like, what was that? But yeah, it's an earthquake. And it does have some relevance to the plot. Not that there's much of a plot for this game. But, so yeah, that was my thing going in, and I was really disappointed because their solution was, well, we'll just make every game on rails. Get rid of movement entirely. And that's why the two biggest disappointments for games were... I mean, you could say, well, the games like the kiddie games or the games like Disney Adventure. The thing with Disney... Or not Disney Adventure, but Disneyland Adventure. The thing with that game is... I don't know if that's the correct name, but the thing with that game is... I know people make fun of it and say it's not all that great, but the thing is... Did anyone really expect it to be? You know what I mean? Like, it's a party game of sorts. I didn't really expect that to be anything amazing, so it's not so much of a disappointment, more of just something that's fun to kind of, you know, more of making fun of the child actors being horrible than it is making fun of the game, actually. Because, seriously, there was no need to have child actors. But yeah, that's why the two biggest disappointments was the Star Wars game and, Fable. Because... Fable doesn't even look like Fable. It's an on-rail shooter of sorts is what it's become. And in the Star Wars game, you can't even move. You just go on to the next enemy. And, like, with the whole, oh, well, you can use the lightsaber. Well, yeah, they had games for that for the Wii as well, I believe, that you could swing the lightsaber. You know, it's not like it's something new. And I guess it's disappointing that their solution for movement... I know it was a hard thing to tackle, I understand that, but then don't, you know, shell out a half, you know, baked game just because you can't figure out how to come across movement. And, you know, making everything on rails works for some things really great. Not for a Star Wars game and not for Fable, I don't feel. Or for a game that, you know, getting rid of the exploration, that takes away like half of what makes some games really great. So, yeah, I was disappointed in Microsoft, mostly because of that. Not because I hate Microsoft, or because, to an extent, most of it was, a lot of the games they had didn't interest me in general, but I was disappointed because they couldn't, also, fun fact, you can't drink milk in this game, which is odd. You can give milk away. Yeah, I was disappointed because of that, because it just seemed like they didn't make any... I feel like they dropped the ball. They had interesting technology, and they couldn't figure out any good way of going with the games. And instead of just saying, well, then we won't have these games for Kinect, they still pushed Kinect anyway with games that I don't think worked well. So that's my feeling on Microsoft. For Sony, I know I said I'd take this quick, but it hasn't been. For Sony, I've definitely biased towards Sony, but they didn't have a bad conference. Again, nothing they had interested me. Well, no, that's not true. Sly Cooper 4 interested me, personally. And, yeah, the Vita looks cool. The Vita, you know, using the back touchscreen, you know, interesting. Again, you know, I guess... Oh, and can I go in the mine now? I guess I'll go and talk to the higher sprites first, but, I guess my feeling is, you know, not so much that it's a copy of the DS. It does... using the, like, to raise and lower the land levels in that one racing game. Was it Mon Nation Racer? No, it wasn't Mon Nation Racer. Whatever the one racing game was. It looks interesting. I guess, again, part of it is none of the games really interest me. And that's just part of it. That's why I'm saying they had a good conference. They were pretty decent for the most part. You know, they kind of balanced it out. They didn't focus on the move, they didn't focus on 3D, they kind of balanced things out overall. And here's how the mine will work. Basically, you're going to use your hoe, or I think it's hoe, but you gotta use that to dig. And don't worry about using like charging it up, because you can only just, it's not gonna change what you dig up. But use the hoe to dig around. Occasionally you'll find a hole which will take you to a bottom level to find better stuff, but you have to get lucky in finding it because the hole's always random. Things you can find in the mine: coins, which just instantly get added to your money supply; iron ores, which are worth 100G; moonlight stone, which is worth 500G; blue stone, which is worth 700G; and rare metal, which is worth 1000G. That was the moonlight stone, I believe. Rare metal and blue stone are both kind of also important because the rare metal could be given to Rick for something. I don't know if you need to give him like multiple rare metals or just one for what he needs to do. There is something that happens with him. The blue stone can be given to the craftsman, and you do definitely want to get, well, definitely, but it's worth getting the blue stone. So yeah, the mine's pretty interesting. Be careful though, because again, if you're in the mine and it's snowing, you're going to still be affected by the rain, even though you're inside the mine. But yeah, Sony's wasn't bad. I do worry about, again, focusing on sequels and other things. There's other things I can get in that doesn't really have to do with how they did for E3, more of worries about the game industry in general, but that's just for another video. But Sony's was fine, nothing that really wowed me necessarily, but at the same time, again, none of their games interest me. Part of it is most of them are realistic, and I just don't like that style. It's boring. That's quite frankly, it's boring to me. That's not to say that any game that's realistic is horrible for me, because I like Portal 2, and I like Portal. I like games, I guess my thing is they're realistic and nothing they have really is, out there. And you can say, well, wait, Little Big Planet isn't realistic. Well, Little Big Planet's a whole different thing. I don't like, that has to do more with, I like to have a goal type thing, and it feels like, I guess maybe I haven't looked into it much, but like Little Big Planet to me doesn't seem to have any point to playing Little Big Planet. There's no goal to it, and I'm not a huge fan of the whole user-created content type thing. So that doesn't really have as much to do with the realism at all. But oh, hello. Tomorrow is the Thanksgiving festival. Oh, cool. Thanksgiving. Kind of odd. I think it's the only holiday that's related to real-life holidays in this game. Kind of like how on Animal Crossing, the first Animal Crossing, or yeah, GameCube, there was a bunch of... Oh, hello, Ellie. There was a bunch of holidays related to real holidays, but then the later ones, like City Folk, didn't really do that as much. And she's baking cakes, but she wants eggs, so you can sell her eggs, and you'll get, I guess if you say here's them, you'll get them for free, which I guess that would help you in making her happy, but I'm not dating her, so I don't care. You're gonna pay me for my eggs. Let's see, the eggs are 50G each, I believe, and there's 6 chickens, so I guess that's basically what you would get normally, because 50, yeah, that'd be what you get normally, so I didn't really lose any money, I don't think. But, anyway, obviously on to the next, the thing about E3 that obviously most people know I'm more interested in was Nintendo. I really, a lot of the games they showed, actually, I was more interested in a lot of the games they showed after, not during the conference that they revealed on their site, such as, I'm really into the Fortune Street, because I instantly recognized that as being Idaki Street, or I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but the game that it was released in Japan only for the DS. It's actually a series, and the DS one was the first one to include Mario characters. It's basically made by, I think, is it Square Enix or just well, it's probably Square Enix, but it included Dragon Quest characters, and it's kind of a Monopoly style board game. But the one for the DS includes some more Mario Party elements because of the inclusion of Mario Party characters. That's why it frustrates me when people I heard were saying like, "Oh, it's Mario Monopoly." It's like, no, it's not Mario is the cameo. It's a Square Enix game based on Dragon Quest, and Mario is the cameo in this one. You know, I guess it frustrated me because people weren't getting any of the backstory. And it's like, it's based on Adaki Street. It's the first, actually, yeah, it's the first North American release of the game for the Wii. So that was one of the most interesting games I saw. Kirby Wii obviously really was, you know, I'm really looking forward to Kirby Wii. Kid Icarus, Luigi's Mansion 2, obviously, all the ones for the DS. Well, not Star Fox. Star Fox doesn't really do anything for me. I'm not gonna say that because that's a whole other video entirely too. But there was another third-party game that for the Wii that was interesting to me. Actually, I'll probably maybe talk about that tomorrow, possibly, or next video. But yeah, can't think off the top of my head. Ironically, Professor Layton, the DS game, was interesting. Partly because I just got done with the first Professor Layton game for the DS, and this is a prequel, so it looked cool. Mass Attack I liked for DS as well. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what other games that were released online that weren't. I know that there was another Wii game, I thought. Skyward Sword obviously looks amazing in my opinion. I do admit the characters are kind of odd to look at first, but I think you'll get used to it because I'm already used to them. Specifically the Zelda-like character. But then obviously there's the Wii U, which I personally think has a lot of potential. I think it depends on what the game makers decide, and I think people should stop worrying about it and just sit back and just, you know, wait. You know, people complaining saying, oh, the name is so dumb, and it's like, yeah, it's a little silly. I like silly names compared to boring names, and I think that it's kind of silly to complain about the name when it's such a little aspect of the machine. It's like people who complain about names for Pokemon, or when, you know, the names change from Japan to America when the actual US names are released, and I'm like, oh, these are so much more silly than the Japanese names. It's like, you know, really, even if you really think, you know, even if you think that, fair enough, but is it really that big of a deal? What is it? A name doesn't really matter, it's just a name, it's a label. But, yeah, I know I'm not really talking much about it, because, again, it just was revealed, so I don't really want to make any judgment on it, besides I think it has a lot of potential, I think it's interesting, and I do like it. I think and people who are saying it's uncomfortable to hold, I don't think it'll be uncomfortable to hold at all, personally. But, yeah, I know I didn't really talk too much on Nintendo, ironically, but, yeah, I guess that's about it for this video, so next time I will be doing more farming. So this has been Mega for Hunter, I'm reminding you to lick a llama with your tongue.